Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. I'm not really sure how rare and exotic this is. This is Family Estate bottled small batch rye, 4 years of age, 54.7% ABV, straight rye whiskey. What I love is on the back of the bottle, it says here, distilled, comma, aged and bottled by the Willett Distillers, Bardstown, Kentucky. Yay. So I'm going to pull out a bottle of Johnny Drum for a moment and read what it says on the back of that. Oh, that was a decent pour. Yay. I'm not usually well known for those. So we have here the Johnny Drum private stock, and in the back it says here, distilled and bottled in Kentucky. So then it says Johnny Drum Distilling Company, Bardstown, Kentucky, but it's distilled in Kentucky and bottled. This is sourced whiskey. Now, I don't know if the bottles you have are still sourced. Always read the label and learn how to read the labels. That's important. So that's something we have to be able to do as a good whiskey consumer. This is in the Whiskybase 175805. 4 years of age. It is a, where does the bottle size come into play here? It is a 750 milliliter bottle, which is not actually allowed in the European Union, but hey, they actually they should put a sticker on here that says 750. Now, the interesting thing is, we have over here in Germany a good buddy of mine. His name is Kai. We have something called Bourbon News Deutschland, the podcast. It's the only German language podcast about American whiskeys so far. Exclusively American whiskey. So every month we actually talk about the new releases in Germany. We always have a focus subject that we drill deep, we dive deep into. Usually it's a distillery or it's a subject about American whiskey, maybe rick houses, maybe barrels, maybe regulations, maybe what is rye whiskey, maybe a little bit of a history of the regulations. We've talked about bourbon tourism just last month and so on. And in January, we did a nice little deep dive into Willett. And Willett actually started distilling again themselves basically 2012. So they've been at it now for about 2012. So about 11 years now. I was there at the distillery 2016, and I had the privilege of tasting a 3-year-old rye made by Willett, which was fantastic. So 2012, they started distilling. 2014, they brought the first self-made 2-year-old rye on the market. So 2014, we had the 2. Basically, 2015, we had the 3. 2016, we had the 4. And now I would assume that we would have the 5, the 6, the 7, and the 8. But no, there are no 5, 6, 7, or 8-year-old ryes. There is, just recently, last fall of 2022, the Willett Wheat 8-year-old was released, which is fabulous. Very, very good. But the question that I have to ask is, dear Willett, where is the older stock? Where's it going? What happened to it? Why is this still only a 4-year-old product? If you go to the website here of Willett, you will see that they have the Willett Pot Still Reserve, the Willett Family Estate bourbon, rye, 4 years of age, Johnny Drum private stock, Old Bardstown, Noah's Mills, Rowan's Creek, pure Kentucky, and Kentucky vintage, which is great. And I think Willett just announced that they are going to build a second distillery, not in Bardstown. For some reason, there's no more capacity or no more planning permission or no more whatever. I think it always has to do with incentives and tax breaks and so on. They're going to build someplace else. But Willett is making whiskey. They're making a lot of whiskey. 60 or so barrels a day is what they can make. But where is it? Now, maybe it's all now going into the Noah's Mills, the Rowan's Creek, the pure Kentucky. No, it's 12 years old. The Bardstown bottled. Maybe there was a lot of contract distilling going. I don't understand that. But that's just me. All right. Now, the interesting thing is what we also found out in our deep dive is that Willett has different mash bills. They do have a rye bourbon, high 13% rye. They do have a 20% wheat, and they have now they have a 38% rye and a 7% rye. So they have 4 mash bills with bourbon, and they have 2 mash bills with rye. 74% rye, 11 corn, 15% malted barley, and 51% rye, 34% corn, and 15% malted barley. And they both have a barrel entry proof of 110. So that's important here, 110. So it means it goes into the barrel for me at 55% ABV, comes out at 54.7% in this case. Online, if you look at the Willett website, they actually just say 55%. So 80% of the production capacity is bourbon, 20% is apparently rye. And between 2012 and 2017, they actually filled up 25,000 barrels. So they're trucking along. Really well done there. So I would like to just mention a few things here about the barrel entry proof real quick. Now, barrel entry proof is something that the law regulates in America, especially for bourbon. Same thing goes for rye. And in 1962, it was actually changed. So we have in 1962, it used to be 110 up until 1962. Goes back to a ruling of the Federal Alcohol Administration Act of 1935, which states that bourbon had to be withdrawn from the cistern room of the distillery at no more than 110 proof and no less than 80 proof. And now in 1962, they pushed it up to 125. And some of the greatest bourbons of the world and rye whiskeys are made, for example, at Heaven Hill and Buffalo Trace. They both use 125 as their barrel entry proof for bourbon and rye. And so think of our Elijah Craig's. They can go all the way up to even hazmat, 70% ABV. We have a George T. Stagg, been up to 70%. So you put it in there at 62.5, 125 proof, and it goes up. So often, not always, but often. Now, many of the other people have actually over the years just used a general barrel entry proof of 107. Old Weller, barrel proof 107, so 53.5%. That was standard. Now, we have some companies that you can come off the stills at maximum 160 proof, 80%. You don't have to. You can come off the stills at 70, at 60, whatever you want to. So it's usually if you're somewhere around 60, 70%. All right, you can go in the barrel at 62.5 max, but you don't have to. You can go in lower. Michter's uses 103 proof. Wild Turkey uses 115 proof. Maker's Mark uses 110 proof, just like Willett does. Four Roses likes to use 120 proof, so 60%. Peerless, company we represent over here in Germany, 107. MB Roland, a company we represent over in the UK, 105. Weller, Van Winkle, the wheated, goes in at 114 proof, and Wilderness Trail, they go in at 50% and 105 respectively. 50% for the rye, 105 for the bourbon often. So that's interesting to see the differences. Why more alcohol takes more of that oak tannins out, more water takes more of the sugars, the caramels, the sweetness out of the barrels. And of course, we want more sweetness. What am I going to compare this to? I'm just going to go over here to a Lot 40 from Canada. Why? I don't know. We have 43%. The better choice would have been a Pikesville. But I'm too lazy to go down to my basement where I have my bottles stored for the next whiskey fair I'm going to be at. So, barrel proof, cask strength, not. 100% rye, not. Canadian, not. Kentucky. So, big differences here. Oh, by the way, we're at about 80 euros for this over here in Germany. 4-year-old cask strength rye, 80 euros, about right. Here, we're at under 40 euros. So I can get 2 of these for 1 of these. Just saying. On the nose. Oh, that's a deep, dark, rich cherry moment. There's a little bit of caramel. There's a tiny little bit of cinnamon. There's like a pecan pie going on here. This is absolutely great. Now, the nose, I don't know. Would I get rye or do I get bourbon? I would get a high rye bourbon, to be honest. All right, so over here. Oh, yeah. That's my Lot 40. I thoroughly enjoy and love Lot 40. I, I, I claim to be able to pick it out of, you give me 10, 20 different whiskeys and oh, that's the Lot 40. I just know this smell. I love this smell. I adore the flavor profile. This is absolutely my safe spot in the world. All right. So, of the world of whiskeys, Lot 40, mwah, love it. All right. 4-year-old cask strength. I'm repeating that to myself, even though it's 54.7% ABV. This is a cask strength rye, 4 years of age, made by Willett. Yay. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Wow. I'm still confused about the mash bill. It does almost taste like a high rye bourbon. But then towards the end, now I swallowed, it continues to develop. I mean, that finish is just awesome. The heat, no problem, absolutely perfectly made. Starts off a little weak. It's like, okay, no, oh, wow, nice. Cherry, pecan, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of, just a tad bit of alcohol. Oak. Then it gets even better. There's as if someone just said, "Oh, you're in the room. Let's turn up the volume a little bit." And then at the finish, it's just long-lasting goodness. Um, I'm going to guess that it's going to be the barely legal rye with the 51% corn, 51% rye, 34% corn, and 15% malted barley. But I might be totally wrong. It might actually be the high rye with 74% rye, 11% corn, and 15% malted barley. Yummy, yummy. This is a bee whiskey. This is something I can highly, highly, highly recommend. Now, do I want to try a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old rye from Willett? Of course I do. Would I be willing to pay a little bit more for it? Of course I would. Do I think a 4-year-old cask strength rye whiskey from Willett for about 80 euros is a good price? No. Would I hope to have 65 to 70? Yes. So now I do know that our product range over here in Germany, if we have a Sagamore cask strength with 56.1, we're running around 80 euros. If we have a cask strength single barrel from Wilderness Trail, around 55% ABV, about 51 is what we actually have for the rye at the moment. We're running 79 euros. So that's actually Pikesville rye, 82, 84 euros at the moment. So if you're going to go for a cask strength rye whiskey, you're going to be right around 80%, 80 euros. So that's actually not a bad price. That's why I'm going to give this a C for the value for money. Yeah, that's just the way things are at the moment. All right. So my question of the day is, what is your favorite cask strength rye whiskey? We have New Riff over here, cask strength, single barrel. I'm going to run you also around 53, 51, 54% ABV. We're talking about 78 euros for the bottle. So it's all around that range at the moment that we have to go for cask strength rye whiskeys. What is your favorite? What is your favorite cask strength rye whiskey? Write it down in the comments, and please write down also, if you'd like, second question of the day is, what is your personal opinion about barrel entry proof? Is it something only geeks consider? Is it something really worth considering? Is it something that is just hogwash and absolutely just fairy dust? Is it a conspiracy theory and hoax? What is your personal opinion on that? I call it that little screw you can adjust a little bit. What is the char level of your barrel? What is the barrel entry proof? Where is it in the rick house? And how long do you age it? How long were the staves actually air dried? All these little adjustments, settings you can have there, and you can change the flow profile of your whiskey. The mash bill, the speed of the distilling, the where it is distilled, and so on. All these factors factor in, and the question of the day is, does barrel entry proof matter at all? And if so, what should it be? What would you like? All right, so I really, really, really like this B, and a value for money C. Over here, the lot 40. In comparison, 43%, almost 55%. This feels a tad watery, a tad less flavorful. That alcohol really does carry that taste and carry the flavors. And this just feels a little bit weak, but yet it has that wonderful menthol, eucalyptus, rye goodness going on here. And I highly, highly recommend, if you have not tried the Lot 40 yet, please do. You might love it, you might hate it, you might have found a new companion for your bar, but that's what yes, on yes. Thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, telling others, and sharing. And if you have any ideas why Willett has not released a rye that is older than 4 years, even though it's been in the market since about 2016-17, I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on that. All the best. See you soon. Bye-bye.